All right, so get this. We're going deep into habits today. You ready? You guys sent in a ton of stuff, and it looks like you're really trying to figure these things out.
Yeah, and you're going to love this. It seems like you really want to know the details, like how do they form, what's the science behind them, and most importantly, how can you use that to your advantage?
Exactly. I mean, don't we all have those habits we want to change? So where do we even begin with all this?
Well, if you want to know how to change habits, first you got to know how they form. And to do that, we're going to go way back to 1898 to meet a psychologist named Edward Thorndike.
Oh, a history lesson within our deep dive. I'm in. What did this Thorndike guy find out?
Well, Thorndike, he was studying how animals learn. He had this experiment with cats in something he called a puzzle box. Picture this, a cat locked in a box, and there's a lever inside, like some kind of escape room for cats.
Okay, I'm picturing a very confused kitty. So did they figure it out?
At first, it was just chaos. But finally, they'd hit the lever by accident, the door would open, and out they'd go, right to their treat. The cool thing is, the more they did this, the faster they got at escaping. Like, they just knew what to do.
So they learned from trying, but then it became automatic.
Exactly. Thorndike called this the law of effect, basically. Behaviors with rewards are more likely to happen again. And this isn't just cats, by the way. It's how we humans learn, too. Think about learning anything new. The more you practice and get good results, the more it sticks.
Yeah, it makes sense. So is that how habits form in us? Just repeating something until it's like on autopilot?
Pretty much, yeah. Habits, they're just behaviors that become automatic from doing them over and over. And just like those cats, because they give us some kind of reward. Think of brushing your teeth. You don't think about every step, you just do it.
It's true. I barely remember brushing most mornings. It's totally automatic. But why does our brain even bother with habits?
Think of it this way. Your brain's always trying to save energy. Habits are like shortcuts. They free up space for tougher stuff. Imagine if you had to think about every little step in your morning routine, getting dressed, making coffee, driving to work. It'd be exhausting.
Oh, totally. I'd be wiped before I even started working. So habits help our brains run better.
Exactly. They let us go on autopilot for a lot of our day so we can focus on things that need more brain power, like solving problems, getting creative, things like that.
Okay, so our brains are efficient, but sometimes those autopilot habits aren't so helpful, right? That's where I get tripped up.
Oh, for sure. Not all habits are good, right? Some help us, some don't. And to understand how to change them, we got to unpack how they work. You've probably heard of the habit loop, right?
Yeah, I keep seeing it, but I'm not sure I really get it. Can you break it down?
Of course. The habit loop, it's like a four-step cycle that explains how habits form and stick around. It starts with a cue. That's what sets the whole thing off. Could be the time, the place, a feeling, even a sound.
So anything that tells our brains to start the habit, like my phone buzzing makes me want to check messages.
Exactly. Then comes the craving, and that's the motivation behind the habit. Not always a conscious craving, more like wanting that reward the habit brings. So in your example, it's wanting to see what that message says or who it's from.
Okay, so cue triggers the craving. What's next?
Next is the response, the actual habit behavior itself, what you do to satisfy that craving. So with your phone, the response is picking it up and checking the message.
And lastly, the payoff, right? The reward.
Bingo. The rewards, that good feeling you get from doing the habit. Could be knowing who messaged, enjoying the message itself, or even just feeling connected.
So it's this whole cycle: cue, craving, response, reward.
Yeah.
And the reward makes us want to do it again when the cue pops up.
You got it. And the more we repeat it, the stronger that connection gets in our brains. That's how habits stick around. But here's the thing. The habit loop isn't just about blindly repeating stuff. It's actually about solving problems.
Problem solving. How does that fit in?
Every habit, good or bad, it's formed to deal with a problem, even if we don't realize it. You wouldn't develop a habit unless it did something for you.
Okay, so even bad habits are trying to solve a problem.
Absolutely. Let's say you stress eat junk food. The cue might be the stress. The craving is wanting to feel better. The response is grabbing those chips. And the reward's that temporary comfort or distraction.
So the habits try to help with the stress, even if it's not healthy in the long run.
You got it.
Mhm.
And that's why figuring out the problem each habit's trying to solve is so important. It's like finding the root cause before you can really fix it.
This is making me think. So if we know the problem, maybe we can find better ways to deal with it.
Exactly. And that's where the 4 laws of behavior change come in, which we'll talk about next. These laws are like a guide for building good habits and breaking bad ones by changing different parts of the habit loop.
I'm ready for these laws. But maybe we should take a break before we jump in. Listeners, think about your own habits. Can you spot the cue, craving, response, and reward in your own loops. We'll be right back to talk about those 4 laws and how they can help you take control.
Back with ya. Hope you had some aha moments about those habits of yours.
I did, for sure. I realized I'm on my phone way more than I thought. It's like I reach for it when I'm stressed.
That's exactly it, how those habits work without us even knowing. And speaking of how they work, let's talk about what's happening in our brains when a habit forms.
Okay, brain time. Let's go.
Imagine you're learning something new, like a dance move, a new language, even just a new way to get to work. At first, your brain's working overtime, figuring out how to do it.
Lots of trial and error, right?
Yep. And every time you get it right, the connections in your brain get a little stronger. It's like paving a road. The more you drive on it, the smoother it gets.
So our brains actually change when we form habits.
They do. Those neural pathways get more efficient. It takes less effort, less thinking. And that's why habits feel so easy. Your brain's on autopilot, using those well-paved roads.
That's wild. But it explains why bad habits are so hard to break. Those roads are well-traveled.
You got it. But the good news is, our brains can change. We can rewire those pathways, make new ones, even pave over the old ones if we need to. It just takes effort and the right approach.
That's good to hear. So let's get to those approaches. You mentioned the 4 laws of behavior change. Tell us more about those.
For sure. These laws, they were developed by James Clear, and they give us a way to hack those habit loops. And remember, it's not just about breaking bad habits, it's about building good ones too. So the first law is make it obvious.
Make it obvious. Like really highlight the habit we want to change.
Yep. For good habits, that means making the cues super clear. For example, if you want to start meditating every day, put your meditation cushion somewhere you can't miss it.
You're always reminded.
Exactly. But if you're breaking a bad habit, make the cue invisible. Hide the junk food, silence those app notifications, whatever it takes to avoid those triggers.
It's like controlling your environment to help you, not tempt you.
You got it. Okay, second law. Make it attractive. We stick to habits that are fun or appealing.
Now this sounds good.
Oh.
How do we make good habits more attractive?
One way is temptation bundling, basically. Pairing something you like with something you need to do. Want to watch your favorite show? Only watch it while you're on the treadmill.
Ooh, smart. That would make exercise way more fun.
Yeah.
Any other ways to make them attractive?
Find a group of people who have similar goals. The shared experience and support can make a huge difference, like running clubs, book clubs, even online groups.
It's like having a built-in support system. Makes sense. Okay, what's number 3?
Number 3 is make it easy. This is all about making good habits easy and bad habits hard. For good habits, remove obstacles. Want to drink more water? Keep a full bottle on your desk. Want to work out in the morning? Lay out your clothes the night before.
So setting yourself up for success by removing those little roadblocks.
Exactly. For breaking bad habits, do the opposite. Make it a pain. Want to cut down on social media? Log out of your accounts, delete the apps, or even use website blockers.
Make those bad habits inconvenient. I like it. Okay, what's the last one?
The fourth law is make it satisfying. We're more likely to repeat things that feel rewarding. For good habits, that could mean tracking your progress or celebrating milestones, even small ones.
So giving yourself a little pat on the back along the way.
You got it. It reinforces those good feelings. And for breaking bad habits, focus on the negative consequences or reward yourself for staying on track.
Okay, so the 4 laws are make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying. And we can use these for both good and bad habits. This is great.
It's a powerful system. But remember, changing habits takes time and effort. It's about consistency, patience, and being kind to yourself.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. And speaking of marathons, maybe we should catch our breath before we go on to the next part of our deep dive. Listeners, think about which of these 4 laws speaks to you most. What's one small thing you can do today to change your habit loop? We'll be back in a jiffy to talk about more strategies and real-world examples. All right, we're back, ready to put those 4 laws to work. I'm feeling pretty pumped to tackle some habits.
That's what I like to hear. Remember, even small changes can make a big difference over time. We've talked about the basics. Now let's look at some ways to make those changes really stick.
Okay, lay it on us. Where do we start?
Well, let's pick up with making it easy. One of the best ways to make a habit stick is to, reduce any friction. Think about your environment. How can you make it work for you?
So, like, if I want to exercise in the morning, I should put my workout clothes right by my bed, so no excuses.
You gotta get rid of those little things that might stop you.
Yeah.
Same thing if you're trying to eat healthier. Stock your kitchen with good food and get rid of the junk.
Out of sight, out of mind, right? What else can we do to make those good habits easier?
There's this thing called habit stacking. where you connect a new habit to one you already have. Like, tell yourself, after I brush my teeth, I'll meditate for 5 minutes.
So you're using an old habit to trigger the new one.
Exactly. You're using those brain pathways you already have.
And speaking of getting things going, remember to start small. Don't try to change everything at once.
Small steps, big results,
Yep.
and it's less overwhelming, too.
For sure. Just focus on one habit at a time. And once you've got that down, add another.
Mm.
Okay, now let's talk about making those good habits attractive. We talked about temptation bundling, but there's also habit tracking.
Habit tracking, what's that?
It's just keeping track of how you're doing. Could be as simple as marking an X on a calendar every day you do the habit. Or use an app, a journal, whatever works.
I can see how that would be motivating.
Yeah.
It's like a reminder of what you're working toward.
Exactly. It makes you feel good about your progress and keeps you accountable.
Yep.
And don't forget to celebrate those wins, even the small ones. A little celebration never hurts. Okay, so we've got making it easy and making it attractive. What about making it obvious?
This is all about making those cues for good habits really clear. You can use things like sticky notes or alarms on your phone. There's also this thing called implementation intentions.
Implementation intentions. Sounds intense.
It's just making a specific plan for when and where you'll do the habit. Instead of saying, I'm going to exercise more, say, I'm going to walk in the park for 30 minutes every morning at 8 a.m.
So you're taking out the guesswork and putting it in your schedule.
Exactly. The more specific your plan, the more likely you are to do it.
Okay.
Now, for making those good habits satisfying, it's about making sure the reward is actually meaningful and makes you want to keep going.
So how do we do that?
One way is to connect the habit to a bigger goal you care about. If you're saving money, imagine how good it'll feel to reach your goal.
It's like picturing the positive impact it'll have on your life.
Exactly. And get creative with those rewards. Could be a small treat, something relaxing, anything that feels good and reinforces the habit.
This is all so helpful. But what about breaking bad habits? Are the strategies the same?
The ideas are the same, but we do the opposite. Instead of making it obvious, we make it invisible. Get rid of temptations, avoid those triggers, make it as hard as possible to do the thing.
So if I want to stop checking my phone so much, I should put it in another room, turn off notifications, maybe even delete some apps.
You got it. Out of sight, out of mind. And instead of making it attractive, make it unattractive. Focus on the bad stuff that comes with the habit. Remind yourself why you want to quit, and imagine how much better life will be without it.
So it's about changing how we think about those bad habits, really focusing on the downsides.
Exactly. And instead of making it easy, we make it hard, add some friction. If you're trying to cut back on junk food, don't keep it in the house. Make yourself go out of your way to get it. Make it less convenient and less appealing.
Make those bad habits a real pain. And lastly, instead of making it satisfying, we make it unsatisfying. How do we get rid of that reward?
One way is to find other rewards that fit with your goals. Like, if you usually reward yourself with something sugary, try a healthy snack or a relaxing activity. You can also use accountability. Tell someone about your goal and ask for their support.
Yeah, having that extra support can really make a difference.
It sure can. It's all about setting yourself up to succeed and giving yourself the right tools and support.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. I feel like I really get how habits work now, and more importantly, how to change them.
Remember, it's a journey, not a race. Be patient, celebrate those wins, and don't be afraid to try different things until you find what works for you.
Well said. Listeners, we hope this deep dive has helped you take control of your habits and create the life you want. Remember, you're in charge of your habits, and your habits are in charge of your life. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.